So in this video, we're going to set up a patient prescription on the Vivo 55. The first thing we need to do is turn the ventilator on via the button on the side. It will take 3 or 4 seconds to go into standby mode. Okay, so at this point, we can actually see that the Vivo 55 is in the home mode. So that's just denoted by the padlock on the main screen there. So to unlock the device into the clinical mode, what we need to do is press the left and right buttons, press and hold them together until the progress bar completes. The ventilator is now into its clinical mode. So to set up the patient mode, we press the left-hand side of the menu buttons across the bottom of the screen. So this one says mode above it. We're going to look now at how to set up a patient prescription on the Vivo 55. So if you look at the screen on the underside, you have 5 buttons across the bottom here. So the first one is mode, and then setup, and then alarm, and then monitoring, and then the others menu. So what we need to do first is go into the mode section. Now, when we're in the mode section, we can set the Vivo 55 firstly into a ventilation mode option. We can use this as a pressure ventilator or a volume ventilator. If we have a leakage circuit attached to the Vivo 55, you can see we can set the device into a CPAP function. So let's start by going into pressure, and then if I press down, I can then get into my breath mode options. So I can set the Vivo 55 into pressure support, pressure assist or control, pressure mouthpiece ventilation, and pressure SIMV. So let's just go back to the beginning and we'll work on pressure support. So once you've selected your ventilation mode and your breath mode, we then select next. Okay, and from there we go through to the settings screen. So within the settings screen, you can set your patient parameters. So again, using your navigation buttons, your up and down and left and right, we can select the parameter we want to change. So the inspiratory pressure, the PEEP setting. So you'll see here, if I use my left and right buttons, I can change the setting, and then to confirm the setting, I simply just press down to move on to the next parameter. Then I have the inspiratory rise time. So 1 is the fastest rise time and 9 is the slowest rise time. And you can see from the shape of the flow curve that's shown on the screen there what sort of rise time you're getting. You then have your inspiratory trigger, your expiratory trigger, your minimum inspiratory time, maximum inspiratory time, your breathing backup rate for the patient, their backup inspiratory time, and then if you want to set a target volume, you can do so by activating the target volume, and then you can set your minimum and maximum inspiratory pressure that the Vivo 55 can operate between. Once we've set all of our clinical settings, we then press next, and you'll see then we go through to the first page of the alarm settings. Once we're in the alarm settings, we can set our high pressure and low pressure alarms. Again, it's the same process of changing the settings as we've just seen in the settings menu. So if I want to increase a pressure setting, I'll just do so with my left and right buttons, and then I move down to the next one. Okay, so now I have my high inspiratory volume alarm. Okay, and then my low inspiratory volume alarm. So for example, if you want to deactivate the high and low volume alarms, just make sure that the low volume alarm you set downwards to 0 and the high volume alarm you set up to its upper limit of 3,000 millilitres. You have a high and low breath rate alarm, a high and low minute volume alarm as well, an apnea alarm which detects a cessation in triggering of the patient, a disconnect alarm if the circuit becomes disconnected at any point between the ventilator and the patient. You have a rebreathing alarm, which I would advise you set to on. And then in this situation where either the leakage port or the active valve in the circuit has become obstructed or is not functioning properly, then you have a rebreathing alarm to let you know that the patient is potentially rebreathing their CO2 that they're expiring. You also have an obstruction alarm which will detect any blockages in the circuit. Okay, so once you have set all of your alarms, then again we press the next button at the bottom, and now the Vivo 55 asks us to set either an exhalation valve circuit or a leakage circuit, as you can see there. So generally for these COVID-19 setups, the non-invasive circuits that we'll be using will be the leakage circuits, and where possible the invasively ventilated patients will be using the active exhalation valve circuits. So once you've established all of your settings, all of your alarms and the circuit type, then we just click confirm, and you'll see there that the device is offering the opportunity to do a pre-use test on the screen. So if we selected yes, it would then work through a guided series of instructions, which is telling you how to set up the circuit that you're using, so either the leakage circuit or the active exhalation valve circuit, and it will measure the resistance of the tubing in order to optimize the treatment that we're delivering. Okay, I won't run through the pre-use test right now. We can do that a little bit later if needs be. Okay, so now we're going to have a quick run through some of the more advanced monitored alarm values on the Vivo 55. So what we need to do is press the alarm button across in the middle at the bottom of the screen. Okay, so what you can see at the top of the screen here, it will say 1, and then there's a bracket and a number 3. And now that indicates that you have 3 pages for this alarm screen setup. Now if I press the alarm button again, you'll see that I go into the second page of alarm settings, and if I press it once more, I go into the alarm and event history. So we've had a look at the primary alarm settings on the first page, so let's just have a look at what we've got on the second page of the alarms. So as I go down through this list, I have a high and low PEEP alarm. Okay, so you probably won't be setting this for these patients, but what we do have are the accessories for the SpO2 monitor. So you may wish to set a high and low SpO2 alarm setting if required. That monitor will also look at the patient's pulse rate, so you can set a high and low pulse rate alarm if needed. We will be using FiO2 monitoring as well, so if you want to guarantee at least a set delivered fraction of oxygen, we can set a low FiO2 alarm setting there. And we are using the end-tidal CO2 sensor, so we can set a high and low end-tidal CO2 alarm value and also a high inspired CO2 alarm setting if needed. Again, the way that you change these alarm settings is identical to how we've set the device up and changed the first page of the alarms. You'll see that you use the left and right buttons to change the setting, and then up and down to toggle through the list. All right. And then if we press the alarm button once more, then we would come into the alarm event history, which will give you a brief summary of everything that's happened with the device. So whether it's been switched on, off, treatment has been started, treatment has been stopped, all alarms that have been triggered during treatment as well. So you can go back and review what has been happening with that individual patient. That's a brief overview of the prescription setup for the Vivo 55 and how to set up the primary alarms and also the monitored value alarms as well on the Vivo 55. So the settings that we've seen here were purely for demonstration purposes. Please refer to your local guidelines for treatment of COVID-19 patients.